Hello and welcome to another episode of Sensational She-Geek live from Yancy Street. Today is Monday, February 22nd, 2021, and as it is a Monday episode, episode 6A, I'm going to be starting off with talking a lot about WandaVision episode 7, do a bit of a recap, thoughts and theories. There was so much going on in this episode, lots of reveals, and plenty to talk about, so we will not dilly-dally and get on with that in just a little bit. But after we talk about that, I will be going over what I'm looking forward to this week in comics. Comics are coming out for DC Comics on the 23rd, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, and the rest of comics come out on the 24th on Wednesday as usual. And I'll be including, as I try to, the spotlights on representation for creators and characters of color, queer topics, and queer representation in comics, and also women in comics. And after that, then there's going to be more TV and movie news, including official stuff on The Flash and Ms. Marvel announcements for casting, a little bit more Snyder Cut film promotionals and drama, and some rumors about long-game MCU projects that are very iffy. But then we'll wrap it up with some very brief thoughts on Hasbro's Marvel Legends action figure announcements and their overall flailing attitude as a company of late, in my opinion. But of course, the main bulk of this episode is going to be about WandaVision. I will be talking about that a good deal. And I've been running these episodes a little bit longer than I've been meaning to, so let's go ahead and get started with that. Because there was so much that happened in this episode and so much that I wanted to talk about and do a recap on, I kind of split it up into the three different sections that we kind of see characters going through. That was kind of the Wanda section of things, the Vision section of things, and the Monica Wu section of things. So, and that'll tie back into Monica towards the end. So, starting off, of course, this episode was the Modern Family inspired theme show with a touch of The Office. That was very much the Office theme song in the intro, and also very interesting, the intro was pretty much just Wanda is the title of the show, and at the very end it says WandaVision on the little calendar, just like it did in The Office. So I feel like it's a little bit, it's kind of a perfect match, actually, I would say, between those two shows it's taking the inspiration from. It has the single camera thing that The Office kind of started, and it takes place in the house just like Modern Family does. But it seems that Wanda is the only one who actually gets time with these one-on-ones with the cameras. She's the only one who gets the behind-the-scenes talks. We don't get any of that from the kids. We don't get any of that from anybody else. Well, we get it for a little bit from Agnes, as we know her, supposed to know her in the beginning of this episode. But, you know, there's explanations for that later on. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But there is no kids, there are no twins, there's no Bobby and Tommy who get to do this behind-the-scenes interviews the way that Wanda does, the single-camera interviews, and there is no Vision. And Wanda doesn't really seem to be too concerned that Vision is actually not there. When the kids question it, she actually just kind of says, well, I can't really help it. If he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't want to be here. But that's not the only problem, is their relationship troubles. Things seem to be kind of glitching out in her hex. The kids kind of notice the glitches first. It happens with their games. It goes from whatever a modern gaming system is these days, all the way back to Uno cards and everything sort of gaming system in between, just having playing cards and modern stuff. Bobby says at one point his head feels weird. He hears everything. His powers are going to start being a problem. Kind of, but again, things change in this episode. Wanda can recognize that she's been behaving recklessly, but she chooses to take this day as a self-care day to get through it, and claims that she is punishing herself that way. But really, it seems to be more like she just doesn't want to face her problems, which is kind of the going trend with Wanda since a little bit, you know, kind of the beginning. She starts seeing the glitches in the neighborhood herself. But she's still not concerned about Vision. She just, you know, the only thing that seems to really happen with the kids is when they bring up her brother. She says at one point that Uncle P isn't their uncle, and she doesn't know who he is. So she recognizes that things are going wrong, and she's starting to lose control, but it takes her a little bit of this episode to start really admitting to that. She does say at one point, I'm starting to believe that everything is meaningless. This is kind of a funny take on nihilism. She also says that the kids literally inherited tough skin because of Vision's, whatever it is, that he has, vibranium skin, right? I'm not sure if that's how that worked, Wanda. They're magical children. I don't know if they inherited anything besides just powers. And then, of course, Agnes, quote, Agnes, arrives and takes the boys off her hands, get them out of the way, and they have a very strange scene where she introduces the boys to her rabbit Signor Scratchy, which is a fun throwback to the comics, which we'll see if that plays out to be anything, but her son in the comics is actually a warlock called Nicholas Scratch. Who knows if this rabbit is her son in disguise or anything like that, but we'll see. And Bobby actually has this really creepy moment where he tells her that she's quiet on the inside, which again, there's somewhat of an explanation for that towards the end of the episode. And then by the end of this kind of period of Wanda section of the show, she's really starting to face that she's losing control of her reality. She's definitely getting stretched too thin, and at one point even a voice behind the camera asks her if she thinks this is what she deserves. And she gets all shocked, and you're not supposed to speak, because clearly people behind the camera never speak on these shows. The fact that somebody did in her fake show is very disturbing to her, especially the question that they ask being, do you think this is what you deserve? That's a little bit disturbing. So that's pretty much what happens with Wanda for the bulk of the episode. And then we have the Vision, and Vision wakes up I remember last episode, he pretty much almost died trying to get out of the Hex to tell General, or whatever his name is, Hayward, to go in and help the people instead of just kind of standing outside and observing everything. And so now that Wanda has expanded her Hex to include most of those sword people, as well as Vision, who is trying to get out, Vision is now waking up on the edge of the carnival where the new border seems to be, which I have a note on that. The people's consciousness around the Hex seems to be based not on location necessarily, but based on location in relation to Wanda. We had been talking about I had been talking about on the last episode of the show how, I guess on the last WandaVision episode, last Monday, how it seemed that people around the borders of the town were all kind of that half people because she couldn't control them, so they were just doing the bare minimum, but still conscious inside, just they couldn't do anything. So it seems that kind of will happen if you're further away from her, not necessarily closer to the edges. So anyway, Vision wakes up along what probably is something like the new border. He's fully aware of himself still. And it's kind of funny, I think, that she made all the sword people into a carnival cast and crew. It's a nice statement on, probably, I guess you could say, what she thinks of them. And the carnival people, who were formerly sword people, confuse him for being the new clown, and introduce him to Darcy, who has turned into the escape artist, and he eventually follows her around. They haven't met, Vision and Darcy. I don't think they haven't ever met in the MCU period. She's just aware of who he is. There's no reason that he would have a reason to be aware of who she is without his Vision knowledge that he would normally have in another situation. So he wakes her up. They kind of have the introduce themselves thing. He just to wake her up because they made the eye contact in the previous episode outside the Hex when he was trying to ask for help. And she tried to save him, but Hayward again had her stopped because he's a Skrull. So they introduce themselves, and realizing they need to get out of here, they take a funnel cake truck or van or whatever, and they head out, and Darcy punches a guy at the carnival, which I am absolutely loving. Kat Dennings as Darcy. She is once again one of the best characters in the show. And the whole carnival, I don't know if this was just me, but the whole carnival seemed to be kind of a step back in time as well. Things in Wanda's area are all kind of glitching out, going back in time. The house kind of seems to be reverting to the way that it was probably before she got there, how it actually looks. So I'm wondering if the carnival being further away from her is why it looks probably a little bit more old-fashioned. The interesting thing about these scenes with Darcy and Vision, though, is while she's filling him in on his deaths, and how Wanda had to watch, and they keep hitting all these red lights, and it's clearly Wanda trying to stop them from getting anywhere, they have these little segments where Vision is being interviewed in a chair outside the van. The van is parked, the funnel cake van that they stole. But that actually doesn't seem to be happening, because at one point he's doing these interviews, and then it just jumps back to him being in the van talking to Darcy, and then it goes back to he's doing this interview. And at one point, it even gets to the point where they're being blocked. He gets really frustrated. He's interviewing outside the truck and suddenly questions why he's interviewing, why he's doing this. And then all of a sudden, he's back in the van and flies off. So are these interviews all done in their heads? Is this all just their inner subconscious thoughts that are being put into show-like format? I'm not really sure, but I am wondering if we're even going to get an explanation on that. That's not really something that seems to be a key feature. It's just kind of a little detail. But anyway, I'm curious about that. I really think now, thinking about it, that the interviews are all in their heads. So then we have, of course, Monica and Wu. Now, they did not get caught with the hex, as Hayward didn't as well. And it's Hayward is the one who discovers that out in real life, the broadcast that Darcy originally found and discovered, I guess the signal that Darcy originally found and discovered the broadcast on of WandaVision is gone. The signal is gone, the broadcast is dead air. I was thinking potentially maybe Wanda changed the signal, made it more digital because, again, it is modernizing, or possibly this is just Wanda preventing people from interrupting her again. Or also she just stretched too thin, and she can't keep that up now. That could have just been an extra thing that she was doing just for fun, subconsciously. She probably didn't even realize it, but it's possible that was just something that had to get dropped along the way because of the power needed elsewhere. So Monica and Wu discover that Hayward was actually tracking Vision because he wants to use him as a weapon. And Monica's first instinct is to warn Wanda, because again, Monica's big fear here is Wanda becoming a villain because she sees the value in her and she sees how much pain she's in, and she wants to help her and wants to protect her a little bit to try and avoid the situation from getting worse and avoid Wanda from having further regrets than she might already have. So, Hayward using Vision as a weapon, again, he's a goddamn Skrull. I'm telling you, this man is a Skrull. And we meet a woman called Major Goodner. Now, there's some talk on if Major Goodner is this person who is the aerospace engineer who everyone was saying, well, Monica was looking for the contact, who's an aerospace engineer. I don't think that's Miss Major Goodner. However, it is very likely that Monica's contact is the person who designed this car and suit that Major Goodner is arriving with. She's bringing this custom vehicle to the Hex. It's supposed to be getting to the Hex. This is also the first time that we really get to see the Hex from the outside, and that it is actually Hex-shaped. I could be wrong in that we could have seen it a little bit before, but this is the first time we do get to see it super clearly, so that was really awesome. I kind of just thought that it was Hex, like, you put a Hex on somebody, but it's Hex, like it's actually Hex-shaped, so that's pretty cool. And now Major Goodner showing up with this vehicle on the request of Monica is a sign that Monica has a small crew of loyal SWORD members. Possibly, you have to assume they must be in connection to her mother and how her mother was a legend in the Army, or in the Air Force, I guess. So Monica then also had to be a legend. So it's been passed down from her mother to Monica. Major Goodner does actually make a statement about how her mother had a lot of friends or something like that in SWORD. So Monica must be very close with this organization the way her mother was. She had to be good from the start, to follow in her mother's footsteps, as the people who are sticking around to help her must really see the same thing that was in her mother in Monica. So that's really good. Her reputation means a lot there. Also, I looked up Major Goodner. She's not a Marvel character. There is some talk that possibly the name Goodner was a reference to Black American artist Kevlin Goodner, who passed away from a stroke in 2019, but he was a big civil rights activist who put a lot of that kind of imagery in his art. So that's a theory. There's nothing that can be possibly confirmed on that. Who knows if that's just a coincidence or not, but it's nice to think about. So Monica suits up and gets in her little, it's like a astronaut suit, and then she gets inside this little vehicle thing. It's like this funny little smart car, but super high tech. It's very small, very much a one-person vehicle, and it's supposed to just, they actually say it a few times, it's supposed to just glide on through, or something like that. Sail right through, that's the actual term they use. Everyone expects it to, quote, sail right through, but of course things can never actually be that easy. So when Monica in her little vehicle, she goes flying up to it, driving really fast. She was flying at a high speed really fast up to it. She hits it. She actually hits it, slams into it like a wall, and the hex kind of starts eating at the front of it. It pulls the vehicle up with the weird sticky pull of the hex that won't let it through, but it won't let it go. And it starts literally just eating up the vehicle. And there's a line that Wu actually says to one of the other sword dudes who was there, saying, it's not deleting it, it's changing it. The actual vehicle itself, the down to the atoms, are being changed by the hex. So Monica ends up having to get out. The hex spits out the vehicle, which was honestly hilarious. And when you see it on the ground there, the first half of it is just a normal truck. This was an extremely high-tech vehicle that she had custom made for herself to get in here, and it literally chewed it up and spit it back out. So there's a beat where she stops, looks at the hex, looks at Wu, and you know exactly what she's doing. She's gonna charge in there, so she does. This scene was kind of something that we saw coming. In the last couple of episodes, they had talked about how the more a person seems to go through the hex, the more they are affected by it. Their cells seem to be being changed. And so we kind of figured that's how Monica's gonna get her powers. And here we go. This was quite a scene. She charges through the hex. She basically has to... I would imagine this is what it would look like to possibly try and push yourself through the thickest jungle in existence, maybe? So she's pushing herself into it, pushing as hard as she can. I don't think she even has her helmet on doing any of this. And her suit kind of starts coming apart as she's going through it, and we hear her, I guess... It's the voiceover from Captain Marvel, lines from the Captain Marvel movie where she was a child. And you know it's what's going through her head, pushing her forward. And here's the lines as they appear. It's her mother is Maria, and you have Carol, who is Maria's best friend. They were partners in the Air Force, and Monica is a young child, and Fury is just kind of young Fury at this point. I think this is still before he lost his eye, too. He does it at the end of the movie. So here are the lines. It's Maria telling Carol that she can't leave Monica alone. Monica telling her mother that it's okay. Maria saying that there's no way, it's too dangerous. Monica saying to Maria, maybe I can meet you there halfway. Fury saying to Monica, if you want to fly, you need to learn how to glow like your Aunt Carol. Maria telling Carol, you were the most powerful person I knew. The nurse talking to Monica on Maria after her death, which we saw in the beginning of the episode that revealed Monica's return after the blip, saying, your mother was truly inspirational, I'm so sorry. And then the final line we hear is, Carol to young Monica, your mom's so lucky, when they were handing out kids, they gave her the toughest one. And then as she's doing all of this, her eyes start glowing blue. She gets like kind of blue energy blips around her, and as she forces herself out the other side, she is fully powered up in her eyes, glowing blue, and you see what she sees. It is the coolest thing. You see, I don't even know what kind of thing it's definitely a spectrum, a light spectrum. She's seeing light in different ways that any human would be able to see. She's seeing light waves, radio waves, she's seeing everything. And as she closes her eyes real hard and kind of powers down her vision, her eyes go back to their normal color, and her vision goes back to its normal vision. So that was really, really cool. I definitely had quite an emotional moment watching that for the first time. And I can't, as a almost 30-year-old white girl, I can't imagine what a young black girl watching this must think. I know I've already heard stories about how Monica Rambeau and Teyonah Parris have inspired young black girls to stop straightening their hair and to wear them natural the way she does in the show, which is huge, and a major reason why, just another reason why representation is such a big deal, and why it's such a big deal that they chose Monica to bring her into the show, and she is so well done, and I'm hoping we're going to see a huge future with her. And we're going to see her taking up the name Spectrum. I know a lot of people think that she's going to be called Photon because that was her mother's call sign from the Captain Marvel movie when she was in the Air Force, but I think that was probably just a reference from the comics, and we're gonna see her being called Spectrum, because the first thing that I thought when you see how she sees things is how it's a spectrum of all of the light and the waves and just everything, and it's really, really cool. And of course, they also had Monica's outfit. She tears off what's left of the kind of suit that she had on to protect her. It kind of started falling apart as she forced her way through the hex anyway, and you see underneath her it's a standard sword uniform, I guess, but the colors of it, oh my gosh, the colors match the same places where the black and the white from her comic suit. It has the black and white emblem on the chest, the kind of black geometric pattern going up to the shoulders, and then the white going down to black pants. And oh my gosh, it's a very subtle reference to her comic book outfit, but it was super obvious to people who know her, and I was just absolutely jazzed to see that they put that little tiny detail in there for us. And then the next time we see Monica is when she is going to Wanda's house. She bursts into Wanda's house. She knows she has to do this quickly because, as we know, Wanda does not want to have her here and already knows that she's tried to do this once. So she bursts into Wanda's house, tries to spit it out as quickly as she can. Hayward wants to use Vision as a weapon and we need to get you out of here. Wanda just straight up says it, I don't want to hear it. And she forces her outside into the air using her, I guess, chaos magic, whatever the red magic is that Wanda uses. And she tries to throw Monica onto the ground, but Monica lands superhero style and absorbs the shock. Well, she appears to absorb the shock with her blue kind of powered up energy sparkles, or whatever it is. I hope we get more talk about it, but it's so cool. I love her powers. I love how they're portraying it. And I'm really hoping that she gets just so powered up in the show. We get to see her go full out. But anyway, Wanda starts accusing her of all of these lies. She tells Wanda that the only one who was making her lie was her. They have this whole passive-aggressive, I guess, mostly just aggressive argument in her front yard in front of all the neighbors. And at one point we actually see Agnes. She opens her curtain, and I remember she's supposed to be watching the boys this whole time. She opens the curtains and sees what's going on, and Mako's kind of, and we know she's going to go outside to intervene somehow, right? Meanwhile, Monica is trying to convince Wanda to take the hex down. She says that Hayward's gonna view Westview to the ground, and she burn Westview to the ground, and she doesn't want to see Hayward make Wanda the villain, which of course Wanda turns around then and says, maybe I'm already the villain. And it's very dramatic of her, but she's in a lot of pain, and Monica tries to get across to her that I understand you're in a lot of pain. I understand what it feels like to lose the thing closest to you and most important to you. Of course, she's talking about having lost her mother after just being disappeared for 5 years and then returning and discovering that her mother died alone. And the strongest person that either of them ever knew didn't bother to show up for that, it would seem. Anyway, that Carol Danvers thing has a little bit less to do with her pain, as the not being there for her mother when her mother passed and coming back and discovering that her mother is gone, her only family is gone. So Monica tells Wanda that her pain is her truth, and that is the moment when Agnes shows up to break them up, and takes off with Wanda, brings her back to her house, and in a last-ditch effort, Monica asks Wanda to take down the hex, and of course Wanda refuses. Did I say that wrong? Monica asks Wanda. I feel like I'm mixing up their names at this point. I've said it so many times. So Agnes brings Wanda into her house, and you immediately get a very bizarre, creepy sense of a feeling. The bunny, Signor Scratchy, is there, but there's not really any other noise coming from anywhere. The boys are supposed to be here. There's just kind of this bizarre fly. The whole thing seems very dead, still air, morbid. So she asks, where are the twins? And Agnes says, they must be playing in the basement. So she heads down to the basement. It's standard creepy basement stuff, down the stairs in the dark hallway. But it turns out her basement isn't a basement. It's some kind of cellar and maybe more. There are stone tunnels with vines, ancient pillars. Everything is made out of old bricks and things. All kinds of flies and light coming from above, which makes me easily assume that we are no longer below Westview here. Unless there's some random streetlights I don't know, something in the ground that, this is not Westview. I'm convinced of it. There's some red lighting on some shelves with skulls and things in the back, and of course the evil book is on display, which we'll talk about in a second, and Agnes comes down the stairs and says, "You didn't think you were the only magical girl in town, did you?" And she reveals that she has magic as well, and her magic is purple, which is cool, I'm sure, for some reason. I think it's cool. I don't really have a reason for it. So, Agnes is not Agnes. Agnes is as I think most people who know comic books have been saying since the very beginning, since we heard about Catherine Hahn's casting. Is this Catherine Hahn? Yeah. Her casting as Agnes. Everybody pretty much assumed this is Agatha Harkness. So here we get it confirmed in writing and in musical format. We find out she's Agatha Harkness. She's a witch. Where are the kids still? We haven't seen that at all. But we get Agatha Harkness's theme song, which is absolutely fabulous, as everybody on the internet is saying, because it is just perfect. I will not try to sing it for you because I don't want to scar you for life, but look it up. It's a fabulous thing. I think I want to make it my ringtone. But please, I've been seeing a lot of people on the internet still calling her Agnes. This woman's name is Agatha. She literally made a song about this. Call her Agatha, please. And in the song, we get the reveal of the things that Agatha has fucked with in Westview and made Wanda a little uneasy about. And those include Pietro, the neighbors acting suspicious about, let's see, that would be Monica, the talent show going awry a little bit, which Vision had already done the gum and that was a different problem. Having killed Sparky on purpose. The camera guy, which was Sparky, was the kid's dog. The camera guy, she was the camera guy who was asking that question behind the scenes. And I'm thinking that she must be blocking Bobby's telepathy too, and that's why he said that she's silent inside. It's that, or she's just some creepy dead witch thing who came back to life and is trying to do something insidious. I don't know. I got a lot of theories for this. But one thing I did want to point out before we get to the end credits scene is when we see the reveal that she had been involved, let's say, in the whole Pietro showing up thing, there is a picnic basket on the lawn, and Agatha is sitting there eating like a little picnic dinner in the middle of the night. And I'm wondering, is she doing that by herself, or was Pietro meant to be at that picnic with her and she sent him up to the house? Is he Ralph? We still haven't seen Ralph, and there's several other people who Ralph could be, but is it possible that Pietro is Ralph? Was she just manipulating him, or was he her creation? Unclear. End credit scene, of course, being Monica is searching outside Agatha's house, looking for whatever she did with Wanda / the boys, which I don't think the boys are even on her radar right now. And as she looks into some kind of secret entrance, or whatever that thing is called, into the basement behind the house, Pietro pops up and says, "Snooper's gonna snoop," and it cuts to black. He's more or less dressed normally. Everything he's wearing is pretty much some shade of blue, which I don't know if that's a reference to his comic outfit or what. Then he's got a blue beanie, and this is having a lot of people, including me, I'm wondering, is he her husband Ralph? There was Nightmare had been tossed around, and obviously Mephisto has been tossed all over for every character on this show. Both of which I still feel might be valid points. But I definitely think that he's going to speed run her somewhere, since he does have the Quicksilver powers no matter who he is. He's going to speed run her somewhere, and possibly she will absorb that energy and he can't run, or possibly she will absorb it upon arrival and fight back. She's not used to her powers, I don't think, at this point, it's safe to say, but she is somehow... she's learning. She's definitely learning. She was able to do that little bit of self-defense outside Wanda's house, and I definitely think she's going to be a quick learner, just based on everything we know about Monica Rambeau as a character, both in the comics and in the show so far. So whatever he does with her after this, I'm not too worried about her. I think she'll be able to handle herself with, or honestly without her powers, she'd be good. So that's pretty much a recap of what actually happened on this show. I slipped in some thoughts and theories in there a little bit as we went, but here's some more thoughts and theories. We got a whole other section I laid out for this. So, for starters, we can assume, because of the old-looking cellar and tunnels under her house, that Agatha has been here for a very long time, or at least this basement area has, whatever that is, and I'm assuming that's where Agatha's home base is, whether the house above has always been there or not. So at this point, I'm thinking maybe Wanda must have been subconsciously attracted to the ambient magic in the area, and that's why she chose Westview as her place of birth. Or it's also possible that if that basement area leads to many places, those doorways could lead to many locations. It's possible that Agatha is just using that as a waypoint to somewhere else, and this just happens to be one of the doorways entrances right now is Westview. This could be super, super wrong also. But I'm wondering also, is Agatha under Wanda's control at all? And I'm thinking no, because it looks like she, during her little theme song, it looks like she changed herself to match the rest of the neighborhood upon her arrival. But I don't think she's the one controlling Wanda, or I don't think that she's controlling Wanda or making everything old-fashioned like that, or even the one who's making things get older and newer and kind of mess around, glitch out that way they have been throughout this episode. I just think that she's been basically fucking with her, testing her limits, getting to know her, getting inside knowledge, and I guess basically ultimately poking the bear being Wanda, to see where it'll react and how it'll react. Now the big question that leads into is, why is she doing this? Theories for that could be maybe she's working for someone, like Mordo, Baron Mordo. I don't know, is he Baron Mordo in the movies yet? I'm honestly not sure. We saw him in Doctor Strange, which honestly, if Mordo's involved, I think it'd be more likely that she's hiding from Mordo. Because if you remember from Doctor Strange, he says that his whole thing here is he wants to take out the world's excess magicians. He says there was too many magicians in the world, and he wants to basically remove as many of them as he can. So it's possible that she is hiding from Mordo because he is hunting people out to, or magicians out to destroy, kill them, slaughter them, fill in the blank with whatever term you want. Or, I was so many ors here, you could also say that she is here doing all of this because she wants to siphon Wanda's powers. I think the only way that would be possible is if she knows something about Wanda's magic that we don't, which we don't know too much about Wanda's magic, so that's very possible. But I still think it's more likely that she's doing all of this on behalf of someone else. I don't know, I'm actually very split. I don't think it's more likely. I think I'm actually right in the middle of, if she's doing this because she's power hungry and has some crazy Agatha Harkness plan. She's not a very predictable person in the comics. She's not always been a friend to Wanda in the comics too. She's not always been a truthful person to Wanda when she has been her friend, or when she even isn't her friend. Their relationship is odd, for sure. They're both witches, so of course there's going to be an element of competition that has always been there in their relationship, as well as a touch of the mentor-mentee, a touch of the frenemy. They have a complicated relationship. So if this ends up being a lot of Agatha and Wanda just kind of them headbutting at the end of this, I wouldn't be too surprised. But at the same time, I really feel like if we're going to get a solid tie into Doctor Strange, Mordo or someone else like that, Mephisto, whatever, Nightmare, would be the most logical tie-in to do that, and have them be another factor in what Agatha is doing for whatever reason. Now, the book is probably going to be the Darkhold, the Book of Sins. It's a book from hell. It ties into Doctor Strange, Mephisto, Wanda herself. There's theories that the person who apparently created the Book of Sins is going to be behind all of this. It's a super deep cut character, so I don't quite see that happening, but who knows? Theories on how the book got here, I think the most obvious thing that I thought of right away, I think everybody thought of right away, was Doctor Strange was one of the people who was blipped, so it makes the most sense that she took the book while he was gone during that 5-year period that he was blipped. We know that Wong was supposed to be there, I'm pretty sure, right? Wong was there taking care of things, but as we have seen, Wong isn't necessarily able to be on top of all the things that can happen at the Sanctum Sanctorum at the same time. There's a lot of magical chaos that is out there in the universe, and Wong's just one guy. And he's certainly no Sorcerer Supreme. No offense, Wong, you're a great magician. So I think it's possible she took the book, We'll kind of have to wait and see if she took it or was given it. I'm not even sure if this is a book that Doctor Strange would have at this point. He'd certainly be aware of it, and its usage would certainly get his attention. But I don't think he's going to show up in this still. But I think this is definitely something that the book is going to be the strongest tie-in to Multiverse of Madness, whether it's going to be something that formerly belonged to Doctor Strange, formerly belonged to Mephisto, or has a tie to a different character like Mordo. There was also a teaser that was released a few days ago, which I watched. I was kind of on the fence about watching it, as I usually am with teasers for MCU things, but I did watch it. And even after watching that teaser, as I said, it's going to go, I'm still not thinking we're going to see Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange in this. We might see Wong, we might see Mordo, maybe some magical person, or maybe even Mephisto, but it would definitely get Stephen Strange's attention for this book. But this book was either be gone or in use, even if it's not his again. And going back once more to Monica's contact, who was probably not the Major we saw in this episode, I think he is definitely not her contact, Stephen Strange. Once again, there is no reason for the two of them to have known each other personally, and Monica doesn't seem to have any connection to Agatha or that whole world at all, so there's no reason for them to have any kind of connection. I still think that her contact is going to be Adam Brashear. However, I'm starting to think we may not see her contact in this show unless it's in some kind of end credits thing. We did see that there was a blue light shining on Wanda's face in the teaser for the next episode. That doesn't necessarily have to be Monica. That could be Adam Brashear and his blue Marvel powers. Unlikely, but I like to hope. And it's also possible, I think, as I said, that he's not going to show up in this at all, or not until the very, 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 very end credits scene or something like that. This aerospace engineer was the person, I think, who created the vehicle for the Hex barrier, and probably just didn't show up with this other Major who delivered it. If they were to say that the Major was the contact, I think that would be pretty disappointing for most fans, and I don't think I think they'll see that in the production, and I don't think they're gonna do that. Things that have been brought up a lot across the internet is that the mailman, he's a dark-haired mailman guy who's been wandering around the neighborhood, he has been a recurring character throughout WandaVision. And so a lot of people are wondering who he is he relevant? I, of course, believe he might be Mephisto. And he might be Ralph the husband, because he does tend to pop up when Agatha is around. But that could be wrong. It's, Agatha's around when Wanda's around, so he could be popping up just to see Wanda. He could be connected to Agatha, he could be not connected to Agatha, he could just be a mailman. But it's fun to think about these things. And then the fake commercial that we got in this episode was an advertisement for a drug called Nexus. And that is an obvious reference to the Nexus of Reality, which is the connecting point for all of the realities and multiverses and such, which we will more than likely see in Multiverse of Madness, which again, this show is supposed to be leading into Multiverse of Madness, more or less. There is a year gap, but it's pretty much supposed to lead directly into that, is what we've kind of been told. All those doors, I kind of talked about it before, all those doors in Agatha's basement, or doorways, I should say, in Agatha's basement, the random skylights that go to who knows where, and whatever the location of that actual basement is, I'm pretty sure it's not in Westview. It's possible that that's some kind of nexus thing, or those are just doorways to all kinds of realities. There are some theories, some really wild theories, honestly, going around online. I definitely don't subscribe to a lot of them, but one that was kind of interesting is if Quicksilver was possibly brought through one of those doorways by Agatha. We're still not really sure if she is the person who created this Quicksilver dilemma of just him being here, period, or if she simply took advantage of it. So that's a little bit up in the air. I'm sort of leaning to her having created it entirely herself, but that would also mean that she has a lot of inside knowledge on Wanda and her relationship with her brother, which could just be from her having existed through the whole Infinity War Endgame. Well, I guess that point would have been Age of Ultron thing. She could have just existed through that. A lot of the crazier theories online are saying that she's from different realities and she brought the book from different realities, which isn't too bad. I don't think she's from a different reality. I think she just has a different kind of magic, and the magic is purple. I think it's cool. I've been trying to think of these things the way that I believe Disney Marvel thinks, based on the, 10, 12 plus years of movies that we've gotten so far. And I feel like a lot of these wilder theories out there are definitely just that. They're just some wilder theories. If we're talking the way that Disney Marvel thinks, if we see Adam Brashear, Mephisto, or Mordo, we're probably not going to see them till the final act or even the end credits scene. So we have 2 more episodes going on. We have episodes 8 and 9. I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen in the next episodes. We are clearly missing the twins. We are clearly... Vision has come back. That's right. Vision left to go check on Wanda, so he's going to show up to either Monica getting person napped, or nobody being around their house, or Agatha's house. I keep wanting to say Agnes. I'm doing the bad thing now. Agatha's house. He'll show up to something, that's for sure, and he'll definitely have to be... and maybe it's going to be him and Monica teaming up, because if Monica gets away and he shows up there, and maybe the 2 of them will end up teaming up the way he and Darcy did. Not sure if Darcy's going to be a key element in this going forward, because she's still back in the funnel cake truck getting blocked from Wanda's town. But if Wanda is getting kidnapped by, or person napped by Agatha, which, again, Agatha used her little magics on her, so something is going to happen here with Wanda and Agatha. It's probably going to be pretty big. She's probably going to do whatever she did to the Sons. Who knows? But it's possible that her magic starts to fail when Agatha does that to her, and people start getting released. Darcy's able to get past all the blockades that have been thrown at her in the funnel cake truck. Who knows? We'll see. To wrap all that up, my main takeaway with Agatha Harkness this week really is, or at least with that reveal, is that there's either another person involved with her whole scheme, or she's really deep into some deep, deep dark magic / multiversal shit that I don't know about. But I still don't think that we're gonna see any universe that confirms the Foxmen are a thing. I'm sorry, I still think that Pietro was cast as Evan Peters simply because it was for our own benefit and nothing else. I don't think it's going to be much more than else. And of course, the next episode of WandaVision will premiere this coming Friday, the 26th, and I will talk about it the following Monday, which is actually March 1st. So now we're going to go ahead and move forward. Now that I've talked about WandaVision for almost 40 minutes, we're going to go ahead and move forward into this week's comics, and I'll probably just mostly talk, since I've talked so much about WandaVision, on my spotlights on representation. There's some really good stuff coming out in comics this week, and I will touch on spotlights on people of color in comics, queer topics in comics, and women in comics. So go ahead and starting at the top there, this week we have the Marvel Legacy Voices #1, Marvel Voices Legacy #1, which is going to be a really, really cool, I guess, unfortunately, one-shot anthology book about characters of color through the Marvel Universe. And they're written and drawn by some of the greatest creators that Marvel has on their books right now. There is a little preview of it that they posted sometime in January, about a month ago, on the Marvel website that's got some good little previews and information on what to expect from this one-shot. So I'll kind of go through that just a little bit. There's some teasers. We have a Monica Rambeau story written by Stephanie Williams with art by Natasha Bustos and colors by Rachelle Rosenberg. Then we have a Luke Cage story written by Ho-Chi Anderson, art by Sean Damian Hill, and colors by Rachelle Rosenberg again. There is a Blade story, which is written by Danny Lore, art by Valentine DeLandro. There's a Venom story, which is kind of an Elseworld story surrounding the Nigerian End SARS protests in 2020, where a Nigerian woman named Ngozi gets the Venom symbiote during those protests. And that is written by a Nigerian doctor, Nnedi Okorafor. There we go. With art by Chris Cross and colors by Rachelle Rosenberg. We have a Domino story now. Is Domino a character of color? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But that's a story written by Toshi Onyebuchi and art by Ken Lashley, colors by Juan Fernandez. And let's see, is there another one? We have an Ironheart, Ms. Marvel, and Shuri team up, which I kind of wish I had just given each of them their own story, but that's fine. It's written by Mohele Mishigo and art by Chris Allen. Rochelle Rosenberg is really getting her payday on this book. I love it. I know that she was having some medical bills and things, as did many people during COVID in 2020. So I'm glad they're covering her on that, getting her some work. Moving on, we have a story, and the last preview I think that they had here was a story on Miles Morales, which is actually written by John Ridley and Olivier Coipel, which is interesting because they have another anthology story coming out in the Batman Black and White #3, and that's actually going to be covering Tim Fox's new Robin, who's not going to be going by Robin, but it's the sidekick that he's going to be having, and it's a woman, or at least a girl, and I'm excited for that. It's by also the same creative team, the two black men, John Ridley and Olivier Coipel, so that's very exciting. There is a ton more than just this to be looking forward to in this issue. I believe there are 7 stories in this individual anthology, as well as a plethora of covers. I believe there are 5 different variant covers by a variety of Marvel artists. So go ahead and check this out. There's a character in here that I'm sure somebody for everybody. I'm obviously a big fan of Monica Rambeau, so I will be reading it for her as well as a good deal of these other ones. And then for the queer topics in comics this week, we actually have some really good queer representation in this week's comics. Future State Aquaman #2 features 2 characters who are both queer, and that's going to be Aquaman of Future State and Aquawoman of Future State. It's Jackson Hyde and Andy Curry. And this issue, this is by Brandon Thomas and Danielle Sempere, and this is, or Semper, I honestly don't know, sorry. It looks like we're going to be seeing pretty much the same series of events that we saw in the last issue, but this time from Andy's point of view. So that's really cool, and also based on the solicitation, it sounds like Andy manifested a new power, and that's why she lost her leg in issue 1. It wasn't something that she was aware of. She wasn't just wildly lashing out, she just kind of manifested this new power. So presumably she's going to recover and go save Jackson where he's been kept. They covered her leg on the leg that she lost on the cover of this issue, so you can't really tell if she grows it back like a fish or what. So I'm really interested to see how they cover it, because I'm pretty sure in Future State Justice League she had 2 legs. I could be mistaken. We also have Return of the Valkyries #3, which follows Danny Moonstar, Jane Foster, and Hildegard fighting on Earth. Brunhilde is still dead, unfortunately, but we have this new queer Valkyrie who is fighting for Yarnborn. When we're getting little bits of her backstory in each issue as we go along. I don't think we have a name for her yet, if I'm not mistaken. I could just be real stupid and not remember every single time I read this issue. But I'm interested. This is a 4-issue King in Black tie-in series, or the new Valkyrie is searching for Yarnborn, and then the rest of them are all fighting on Earth, and apparently we're going to get another little bit of a showcase on Danny Moonstar. I'm very curious if she's going to end up being a Valkyrie in this issue, or this series even, because she is actually a Valkyrie of Hela, which means that she would have to be called upon by Hela to use her Valkyrie powers. Other than that, she's still useful, she's still a mutant, and she's still Danny Moonstar, so of course she is a lot of use to have around in a big fight like this. And then also for queer topics in comics this week is Monstrous #32. This is by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, who Sana Takeda you can also see on the Batman Black and White #3 variant cover. This last issue, the first return issue for Monstrous since its hiatus, it ended with Micah discovering her childhood best friend and first lover has now married her aunt, and she walks in on them having sex together. So drama's gonna happen here. Micah is not really a gentle or forgiving person, and honestly neither are the other 2 women in the situation, so I think it's safe to say shit's gonna hit the fan. And that leaves me with the spotlight on women's in comics this week. Captain Marvel by Kelly Thompson is at a really solid point in the series for me personally. It's the final issue of this story arc with this week's Captain Marvel #26, where Carol has powered up for her fight with the evil Ove and Enchantress of the future, but it somehow won't be enough because we know the next issue is going to be her return to Earth, her facing her failure, and her breakup with Rhodey. 3 big things. I wonder if we're going to see how much of that we're going to see at the end of this issue. I'm wondering if she's just going to be magically sent back to her time period in the past because of timey-wimey comic stuff and not have a chance to save the future, or if it's just going to be something where she just fails and gets pulled back or what. But looking for some things to look forward to in the coming Kelly Thompson Captain Marvel issues. Marco Cacchetto, who is the ongoing Daredevil artist, is actually doing the covers. He's starting his run on the main A covers for Captain Marvel, which is really exciting for me because I'm absolutely adoring his interiors of Daredevil, and it seems that his covers of Captain Marvel are going to be equally stunning. And actually in issue number 28, which is the issue after next, Carol will be facing her, I guess, failure against Ove, we will be apparently seeing this week, and learning one of her few things that have been holding her back, the way that it holds back Superman. Well, a different way, but it also holds back Superman. Magic. She'll be getting a new suit again. I am all for the variant suits for superheroes, and I'm really, really excited to see if she's probably, I assume she's going to be working with Doctor Strange or somebody, but this is going to be a really cool arc coming up with Captain Marvel. Kelly Thompson is consistently doing a really good job, and I feel like the series just gets better as it goes along. Another Captain Marvel thing that's coming out this week is the Marvel Snapshots Captain Marvel, or actually it's Captain Marvel Marvel Snapshots #1. This issue is multiple stories written by Mark Waid with art by Colleen Doran. That's pretty cool. Colleen Doran, I'm a big fan of her art. She is capable of doing multiple styles depending on what is required by the story. And Mark Waid has written some really, really strong female characters in the past, so I have no doubt he will do a good job with this issue. It is a one-shot, as all the Marvel Snapshot books are. And this book, we're apparently supposed to expect Carol and Kamala, that's the current Captain Marvel and the current Ms. Marvel, but we can likely, they say to expect others, but we can likely expect Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, and Monica Rambeau. I can almost guarantee we'll see the first female Captain Marvel in here as well. There are some other Marvel relatives and alternate universe Captain Marvels and things who they can put in here, who I am somewhat a fan of. I know Phyla Vell I'm a big fan of. Her brother is, whatever his name is, something Vell, Genus Vell, that's what it is. But there's a lot of characters that they can choose from, but most definitely expect Carol, Kamala, Marvel, and Monica. And finally, for the representation spotlights this week, I would like to talk about Nuclear Family #1 because it is written by Stephanie Phillips. She has written some really good things recently, including Future State Harley Quinn #1 and 2, and she'll be doing the ongoing Harley Quinn books starting in March. So I've started looking out for her name as a regular writer who is consistently good. And Nuclear Family is going to be based off of a Philip K. Dick sci-fi story called Breakfast at Twilight. It takes place in 1957 during a nuclear testing in the Midwest. The Breakfast at Twilight itself is a bizarre, very much of the era sci-fi tale. Philip K. Dick's stories usually are. It's some of that kind of off-kilter, as we would see it now, sci-fi things that don't, they have the ongoing message that kind of travels through the era with it, but it's definitely of the era. And this basically this house with this family in it gets transferred or gets pushed forward into the future 7 years, and the past 2 years have been this war with the USSR, and it's just all this nuclear stuff, and then they end up getting the house, they get blown up and in turn get sent back in time again, and knowing the war will still be coming. It's one of those things. But Stephanie Phillips will be writing this. See her next month as the regular Harley Quinn series writer, and also check out her Harley Quinn Future State 1 and 2, which I really enjoyed. If you're a fan of the character, I'm sure you will too. Other things that I'm looking forward to in comics this week, there is actually a lot to look forward to. Blade Runner Origins #1, the Blade Runner comics have been getting very mixed reviews, but this has a fabulous art germ cover and is set 10 years before Blade Runner 2019 comic, so the solicitation says. But the current comic going on is 2029, which would mean 2019, but that's already been done. I don't know. I'm going to check it out. This maybe is a good place to start. Hopefully I don't have to know any of the other things. I'll let you know maybe on Friday. Future State House of L #1 is one that's really interesting. Also, I'm looking forward to. It's by Philip Kennedy Johnson, filling in the third of 4 parts of his Future State Kal-El story, which started in Future State Superman Worlds of War 1 and 2. And now the solicitation I'll just read because it's very interesting in my opinion. Centuries into the future, the bloodline of Kal-El, the hero we know as Clark Kent, continues. Meet new generation of Kryptonian heroes as they stand against one of the greatest threats they've ever faced, a diabolical foe called Red King. Get ready for the unexpected debuts of the twins known as Rowan and Ronan Kent, descendants of Jonathan Kent. Rowan is the new Superman of Earth, while his sister is a Blue Lantern, which is, fun fact, the Lantern of Hope. Also on board are Theander, I think I said that right, Bonnell, whose mother was Tamaranian, and other heroes, all led by the original Man of Steel himself. Don't miss an appearance of the Black Racer. So, my assumption is the Black Racer gets Clark out of War World and away from Mongol, and that's how he is able to continue. Well, he's already had a son, so that's how his line continues, but that's how he's able to be here now. Philip Kennedy Johnson will also be continue writing Superman, I believe, Action Comics as well. I think he's doing both. I Breathe the Body, number 2 by Sean Lewis. The first issue was extremely unsettling, exactly the way that I hoped it would be. Some kind of world where it's this post-apocalyptic universe. The planet has kind of gotten back onto its feet after whatever the apocalypse type thing was, and this kid's dad is super famous because he created the new farmed meat thing that will keep the world going on protein, I guess. So my theory is that this kid is made out of farmed meat. He's a farm kid. I think it's going to be something really disturbing like that. I've already talked a little bit about Batman Black and White number 3. John Ridley and Oliver Coipel introduce the next Batman's new Robin, quote Robin. It will also feature stories by Bilquis Elvely. Wow, I think I said that super wrong. She will be, writing and drawing a Dark Knight in medieval times who fights a villain druid called Ivy. Obviously Poison Ivy. Nick Dragotta makes his DC writing debut with the tale of a bat robot rampaging through a post-apocalyptic Gotham, and then Tim Seeley and Kelly Jones will show us a Gotham cursed to be forever haunted by Batman, and Bengal tells a story expressing Batman's admiration for his father who once protected Gotham City, which is a new take on Batman's father, if I do say so myself. Also, Black Cat number 3, which is a King in Black tie-in. I already talked about my frustrations with that in the last episode, but I'm looking forward to this issue to possibly show us still what is going to be happening with this Asgardian transformation Felicia's going through, even though King in Black pretended that didn't happen. We have the Future State Dark Detective number 4, wrap up by Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora. Batman White Knight presents Harley Quinn number 5, that is out of 6 issues. We have had the reveal of who the serial killer is now. We're just trying to get to stopping them portion of things. The Department of Truth number 6 is also coming out, as well as Wolverine number 10. I'm not super pumped about that, but whatever. I'm not a big fan of Maverick. New Mutants number 16 by Vita Ayala and Rod Reese continue to do the good work. Shadow King is getting closer to being a problem for the mutants seriously soon. So keep up with that. It's absolutely phenomenal series by the two of them. And X-Men number 18 is the glorious return of X-23. She went into the vault back at the beginning of Dawn of X, and now she's finally coming back officially older. Thank God there won't be any more weird de-aging of Laura Kinney. And I had to add Spawn 315 as a book that I will be picking up this week. The excitement of Spawn Universe kind of has me looking to see more She-Spawn stuff, and she is on the cover of this and appears on the inside, so that will be a bit of a have to read, or at least have to pick up for me. Last week I talked about what I really enjoyed in comics from the past week, and I forgot to talk about Christopher Cantwell's Iron Man number 6, which I am reading not for Iron Man, unsurprisingly, but for Patsy Walker. And I have to say, praise Patsy. In this issue, she fights through... I forgot to talk about it, so I'm doing it now, if you didn't get that. In this issue, she fights through mental and physical anguish to help a literally broken Tony. He has his neck broken and has to get friends to help stabilize him so he doesn't die. She hauls him to help any way that she can, including a laundry cart and a taxi cab. And I think the moment of them both thinking to each other through their pain while still, in pain, but remembering about each other and having to help each other was oddly sweet and felt oddly accurate for the moments of ouch, shit, this is bad, wait, shit, where is so-and-so? It felt pretty accurate, though I'd never quite been in that situation of almost being dead in the gutter, kind of. Patsy does have major concerns over her mental state, which is granted, but I still think she's one of the strongest heroes around and does not give herself enough credit. And I'm really looking forward to seeing her on the other side of all this struggle. For her relationship with Tony, I really like it, actually. They're keeping together, but they're not dating. They're companions. I would say their mutual interests brought them together, and their shared history helped them bond. They are adults. They have had plenty of hero romances, most of which have ended poorly because they were high profile or had some sort of other factor in their lives holding them back. So maybe companionship is enough just for right now. Plus, it seems like when they're in a bind, being companions to one another seems to be the best thing, and not quite having that amorous side seems to be keeping things healthy. The next issue is going to have a lot of Rhodey, and I'm curious if they're going to mention that breakup with Carol that I mentioned previously. I also want to talk quickly about some really cool art variants that were announced for the final issue of, I believe it's still Ta-Nehisi Coates writing Black Panther, but the final issue is going to be issue 25, unfortunately. I definitely recommend looking these covers up and ordering them if you can from your local comic book shop, because it's going through the Marvel Stormbreakers, who are the 8. They just chose randomly, it seems, artists who do everything for Marvel. But I'll go through this list because they're doing different art styles, and it's called the Fine Art variant. So Natasha Bustos is doing Art Brut African, Juan Cabal is doing Flemish Renaissance, Carmen Carnero is doing Art Nouveau, Joshua Cassara is doing Byzantine, Iban Cobello, I hope I said that right, is doing Art Deco, Patrick Gleason is doing Minimalism, Peach Momoko is doing Nihonga, and RB Silva is doing pop art. Now, they've already shown all of these variants, what they are going to be looking like. I don't read Black Panther, but I am going to be buying a few of these. I'm a big art fan. I collect a lot of prints from artists who I follow due to comic things, even if they are not comic prints, because I am a big art fan. I have to say the Byzantine by Joshua Cassara was drawn to look like a tile mosaic, and is one of the most stunning, probably one of the most stunning comic covers I have ever seen. It's something else. It does not look like a painting, it looks like a mosaic. It is highly detailed and genuinely, honest to God, impressive. I highly recommend checking that out and pre-ordering it, because it is a gorgeous piece of artwork. I have no idea what's going on in the Black Panther comics right now, but I'm gonna be getting some of these covers. Peach Momoko's Nihonga was really cool to see. As she is Japanese, I'm glad they have been allowing her to pull so much of her Japanese heritage into her artwork. As with the Demon Days series starting in March, Nihonga is a traditional Japanese form of artwork that is I believe, wood painting. I also really love the Art Brut African and the Art Nouveau by Carmen Carnera and Natasha Bustos. They are completely stunning works of art. Black Panther 25, I believe, comes out in May, so it's a little bit of a wait for these issues, but it's gonna be absolutely worth it. We have some casting things that have been officially announced for the Flash movie, which is coming out, I believe, in 2023, possibly. We have an official casting for Supergirl, and that is Sasha Calle. She is a Colombian-born actress, born in Massachusetts, and she is joining the team of Ben Affleck, Ezra Miller, and Michael Keaton, and there's probably a few others that I do not have on this. But do remember that they did fire Ray Fisher in January for speaking out against former director Joss Whedon and other people on the set of Justice League. So while this is really cool news that we're going to have a brown Supergirl, and again, having more heroes of color in comic book media is always something that I am pro, because again, the amount of young black girls who I'm sure sobbed or felt severely empowered at that Monica Rambeau empowering scene, where she gains her powers, we need more of that. We need more people feeling that way. So anyway, Sasha Calle, she has been in a few things. I think it was like The Young and the Hungry. I don't know if it's even a show or if I made that up, but it was some show like that that she was in. And I think this movie is still going to be Flashpoint. We got 2 Batmans, so it must be, but they took out Cyborg, who I guess wasn't a super key character, and we don't have Aquaman or Wonder Woman in it, so who knows what kind of Flashpoint movie this is going to be. And the other casting news that we had this week was, of course, Ms. Marvel casting news, where actress Laurel Marsden is going to be playing the character Zoe Zimmer on Ms. Marvel TV show on Disney+. Zoe is a frenemy of Kamala. She is a character who writer G. Willow Wilson and artist Adrian Alfona created to introduce as the first person Kamala saves once she has superpowers. She appears for the first time in Ms. Marvel #3, and is comparable to Peter Parker's Flash Thompson as their relationship of being kind of frenemies. The series Ms. Marvel is currently in production in Atlanta. We have Imani Vellani as Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, Matt Lintz as Bruno Carelli, her best friend / love interest, and Sagar Sheikh, I probably butchered that, as Amir Khan, her brother. I believe his fiancée has also been cast, but I don't believe Bruno's a girlfriend who becomes a problem for Kamala's love for him. I don't think she's been cast yet. Her name is Mike, of all names. And then, of course, we have a head writer, Bisha K. Ali, who is overseeing the whole series, and a number of other people who are involved who have really, really good credits to their names. And something kind of, it's just a fun fact, if you know Marvel and DC artist Mark Brooks, he is actually the cousin to this actress Laurel Zimmer. It's a small world. There's really nothing about that except just it's a fun fact. So that's 2 casting news that we have this week. That's makes things a little bit more exciting for upcoming superhero properties. There was a bit more Zack Snyder stuff in the news today as Vanity Fair put out their promo piece on him. It is pretty much just a promo piece on Zack Snyder Justice League. I'm just writing this whole article off as this is just what they're doing instead of doing the press tour. They're just putting out this ridiculous puff piece on Vanity Fair. It has some heartfelt things about the very real and unfortunate death of his daughter, suicide, unfortunately, of his daughter, while he was filming and working on Justice League. However, it also makes normal things from comics like the death of Superman and his black suit upon his return. It writes that this was Zack Snyder's original idea and not something that he was taking from the comics. And that is false advertising. He did not make that up. That's from the comics. That's been around since, the 90s or whatever. The article also included a new image of the Zack Snyder Justice League Jared Leto Joker, which, oh god. We already have the Superman Jesus Christ metaphor. Why are we now getting a Jared Leto Jesus Christ metaphor? Come on, Snyder. Not everybody can be Jesus metaphors. He's got, it's the Jared Leto Joker dressed up into the robe and the crown of thorns and all for looking like Jesus, and he's looking up into the light with his arms out in the Jesus pose. It's whatever. We're probably only going to see him for a few scenes in this movie, so it's not that much. The other thing that's causing a lot of ruckus about this interview, I guess, this article, was that apparently Snyder wanted a Bruce and Lois romance in the Justice League, but it was shut down. He basically wanted Bruce to find his one true love in Lois and then have it be pulled away because she has to go save Superman. Which, alright, that's rude, but okay. And it was something, a Bruce, Lois, Clark love triangle is something that has happened in the world's finest animated movie. It had to have that romance subplot. Except Snyder's was meant to end with them realizing Superman needs to return and then Lois going back to Superman. So take that all as you will. Of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League comes out mid-March, so just a couple more weeks to wait for that. There were some Fantastic Four rumors of casting that happened. I did not say this with the other stuff with the casting, because this is very much rumors. I don't think the Daily Mail UK is a firm news station, but they, I guess, announced that Jennifer Lawrence was cast as Sue Storm, and I'm just going to say this now. If she is Sue Storm, I'm just going to skip that era of Marvel movies, because she's already destroyed one Marvel property, being a really, really bad Mystique, which, yeah, a lot of that was to do with the writers, but good God, she phoned that shit in so hard. And I am not willing to let that even come anywhere near happening with Fantastic Four or Sue Storm especially. And honestly, I don't think that Marvel would be looking to cast her as anything else after the travesty of her very, very, very heavily critiqued performances as Raven/Mystique. And to wrap this episode up, I was going to just briefly mention the Hasbro Villains Wave announcement. Now, what all that means to people who don't know is Hasbro makes Marvel Legends. They're the basically go-to action figures for Marvel characters, both MCU and comic book. They came out with this long-anticipated wave of villains figures that are supposed to be coming out. The list was edited from what everybody was told originally. It was supposed to have Ultron involved, and now it doesn't. These are all action figures, remember. The characters are God Doom, Lady Deathstrike, Dormammu, Red Skull, Arcade, AIM Scientist Supreme, and there's a Build-A-Figure of Zenmu, who is not a character anybody gives about, as well as Arcade, who looks, well, not like he should. And, that was the one that I forgot. Hood was the other one. Hood looks... Arcade nobody cares about, and Hood was, well, let's just go into this first of all, before we get into Hood. The guys on the stream actually made a meme with an action figure making fun of collectors and fans who, quote, complain about wanting double-jointed armors on female action figures. Okay, not only is this disrespectful to what the fans and collectors and your customers want, it's hugely disrespectful to the female fans and female characters, saying they're not worth that effort. And now they're going as far as to make tasteless jokes about it. Plus, there's a lot of rumors going around that that Hood figure, that doesn't look very good, was originally designed as that meme of the angry fan. They were actually going to put out and sell Angry Fan as a comic book action figure. You're literally making fun of your customer base. I think I'm done with Hasbro figures at this point, unless they put out something really, really good. I'm kind of done with that. So, not to leave things on a bad note, this is a very long, over-talked episode. These seem to be getting longer and longer. I hope that's okay. Thank you for listening again. Thank you for tuning in if you've made it this far. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your support and listening. If you have any questions, comments, or notations or anything like that for me or for the podcast, go ahead and put that in the comments or email me or write it on my site. My website is sensationalshegeek.weebly.com. My Instagram is @AnnaWithTheComics, and my Twitter is Savage She-Geek, because sensational was too many letters. My website does have a lot of written reviews, discussions, comic book pull lists, pick lists, things like that. I actually have some action figure photography, and my YouTube page, which is also Sensational She-Geek, does have some action figure review videos and things like that if you're at all interested to check that out. I am also, this Sensational She-Geek podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, the hosting site Podbean, YouTube, and now I have finally gotten up on Spotify. I don't use Spotify myself, but it is available on all four of those places, and that is all linked on my website. And if you are interested in my Instagram is pretty much just me talking about it's only me talking about comic book stuff. I spotlight things that are interesting to me in comics that I own or that are coming out or current or things like that. Sort of educationally, sort of as an FYI, and sort of as just like, this is things that I just really enjoy and I like talking about them. It's the same reason I do this podcast. I just really like talking about this stuff. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week. There's always a lot going on in comics. My next episode is going to be this coming Friday, the 26th of February. It's the last episode of February. We're already about to get into March. So I hope your week is really good. Pick up some good comics this Tuesday and or Wednesday. And stay sweaty. We'll see you on Friday.